Somebody bring me a chair. You got to learn how to wait it out. You got to learn how to just sit it out. Because when God has fixed it for you, you got to learn how to wait out your enemies. Yes, Dakamazo. I'll be sitting right here till you liars stop lying. I'll be sitting right here till the main boss is fired. I'll be sitting right here till you get out of my business. I'll be sitting right here because I'm waiting you out. I'm waiting out every demon that has come up my way. I'm waiting out every demonic power that's trying to mess me up. I ain't going nowhere. God bless me with this house. God bless me with this job. God bless me with this gift. And the devil is alive. I'm gonna run. Take it if you can.
You won't believe what happened at City of Refuge Church in Gardena, California. The gospel world was rocked to its core when Bishop Noel Jones, a name synonymous with powerful preaching, collapsed mid-sermon in front of a stunned congregation. It's a scene no one will ever forget. There he was, delivering a sermon that seemed like any other, when suddenly his voice faltered, his hand clutched his chest, and he fell. Loretta, his wife, sitting in the front pew, rushed to his side, her face streaming with tears. The shock was palpable. This wasn't just a health scare. It was something deeper, and insiders are hinting that there was more going on behind the scenes than anyone realized. The 74-year-old bishop has always been a towering figure in the gospel world, often surrounded by controversy, but what happened last Sunday was different. His collapse wasn't just an accident. It was a wake-up call, one that many say had been coming for a long time. He'd been preaching passionately, his energy filling the room when his strength seemed to fade, slowly at first. The congregation thought he was simply overwhelmed by the Spirit, but that moment passed quickly. His left hand gripped the podium, his right shot to his chest, and then he was on the floor. The room went silent, filled with gasps. Loretta bolted from her seat, her cries echoing as she sprinted to the pulpit. The panic was real. People rushed to dial 911. Within moments, paramedics were on the scene, and Bishop Jones was rushed to the ICU, leaving behind a room full of questions. But what happened next? Why did this happen? What are those closest to him saying about his health? And why are some church insiders now saying this wasn't just a health scare? Was this a sign that had been ignored for too long? Stick with me, because the story doesn't end here. There's a revelation coming, something that could change everything. And Loretta's reaction, it's left a lot of people wondering if there's more to this tragedy than meets the eye. Stay tuned. The panic in the air was palpable. As the bishop collapsed, others from the pastoral team rushed to his side, desperate to keep him conscious. His wife Loretta was in sheer anguish, sobbing uncontrollably. In no time, the emergency medical team arrived. Bishop Jones, unconscious but still breathing, was swiftly treated with oxygen, his lifeless body carefully loaded onto a stretcher. Loretta, unable to hold back her tears, stayed by his side, her grief unmistakable. As the paramedics rushed him out, the congregation was left in a state of shock. Then something extraordinary happened. Hundreds of people, all at once, began singing hymns through their tears. Some knelt, praying aloud as if in a collective act of desperation. One usher later described it as more than just fear. It was spiritual, like they'd witnessed something they weren't meant to see. But here's the part no one wants to talk about. Our sources inside the church revealed something shocking. Just days before this event, Bishop Noel had been advised by medical professionals to cancel his preaching schedule due to dangerously high blood pressure and signs of cardiac stress. Yet he refused. Why? Because according to one insider, he said, "If I die in the pulpit, I'll die doing God's work." Now, hearing that statement after the fact, it hits differently, doesn't it? But before we dive into his current condition and the tense moments unfolding in the ICU, let's take a step back. This wasn't the first sign that something was wrong. In fact, for months, there had been whispers within the City of Refuge leadership. People noticed changes, subtle at first, but undeniable. His pace was slower as he walked to the pulpit. There were moments when his focus seemed to slip mid-sermon, and more than once he needed assistance getting off stage. Some church elders voiced their concerns privately. "He's pushing too hard," one deacon confided. The demands of travel, preaching, running a mega ministry, and offering counsel, it was all taking its toll. It wasn't just physical exhaustion. Sources close to the family shared that Bishop Jones had been silently battling high blood pressure, chronic fatigue, and in the early stages of heart strain. In fact, one insider revealed that he'd experienced 2 minor incidents in the past year where he lost consciousness, but had dismissed it as dehydration or stress. Still, despite these warning signs, Bishop Jones refused to stop. Just last month, he was back on the road for a 3-city revival tour in Texas and Georgia. In a social media video from the tour, he's seen wiping his brow repeatedly and pausing during his sermon more than usual, subtle but telling signs of physical strain. So why didn't he slow down? The answer might lie in the very essence of who Bishop Noel Jones is. He's always been known for his unwavering commitment to ministry, the Iron Man of gospel preaching. Even in his 70s, he refused to take a back seat. He once said, "I'll rest when the Lord calls me home." It's a powerful sentiment, but it's also a dangerous one. Some people are starting to believe that it wasn't just spiritual zeal that kept Bishop Noel Jones going. Behind the scenes, there was a storm brewing. Financial struggles, declining health, and internal conflicts within the church hierarchy had been weighing heavily on him, perhaps more than anyone knew. Since merging his ministry with the larger City of Refuge structure, rumors about tensions among board members, possible mismanagement of church funds, and even difficulties keeping up with mortgage payments on some of the properties had surfaced. This kind of stress, layered on top of his already demanding speaking schedule, created a perfect storm, one that no one could have predicted. But what about Loretta, his wife? Those close to the Jones family say she had been begging him to slow down for months. In fact, a family friend revealed that just 2 weeks before the collapse, Loretta broke down in tears, pleading with him to see a specialist. But Bishop Noel, ever the stubborn man of faith, refused. "God will keep me, I'm covered," he said. Sadly, those words now seem eerily prophetic, as Loretta's worst fears unfolded right before her eyes. But there's something even more chilling. A hospital staff member speaking under confidentiality revealed that just 48 hours before his collapse, Bishop Jones had ignored direct medical advice. And when you hear what the doctors told him, you won't believe it. As the ambulance sped away from the church, lights flashing and sirens blaring, Bishop Jones was slipping in and out of consciousness. Sources inside the hospital say his blood pressure was dangerously high, and his heart was showing signs of acute stress. They rushed him straight into the ICU at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. But when he arrived at the hospital, things didn't unfold as Loretta or anyone in the church had hoped. A nurse on duty that evening revealed that Bishop Jones had suffered a hypertensive emergency. His blood pressure had spiked to life-threatening levels, causing damage to his organs. If left untreated, it could have been fatal, and here's where it gets even more disturbing. The hospital staff shared that just 2 days before his collapse, Bishop Jones had been at the very same hospital for chest pain and dizziness. After running initial tests, doctors advised him to stay overnight for observation, warning him about irregular heart rhythms. But Bishop Jones declined. "I have to preach. The people need me this Sunday," he told the nurse. And with that, he walked out of the hospital. When Loretta found out, she was devastated. A close friend who later visited her in the ICU said that Loretta was crying uncontrollably, repeating, I told him this would happen." Within hours, family members were notified, and a tense scene unfolded at the ICU. Siblings, close friends, and even church board members arrived, all emotionally charged. The situation was raw, and the weight of what had happened was setting in. Behind the closed doors of the hospital, what unfolded was a mixture of raw emotion, frustration, and stark reality. The hours spent in the ICU waiting room were filled with worry, but the most sobering moment came during a private consultation with the doctor. It was in that room, as the doctor met with Loretta and the family, that the full extent of Bishop Noel Jones's condition was revealed. The diagnosis wasn't just about the hypertensive crisis, it was far worse. Doctors had discovered early signs of congestive heart failure, an irreversible condition that couldn't simply be wished away. "He's been running on fumes for years," the doctor reportedly said, "and his body has reached its breaking point." The words hit Loretta like a freight train. Witnesses recall that she collapsed into her chair, unable to breathe, tears streaming down her face as the truth settled in. Church staff tried to comfort her, but the weight of the reality was undeniable. The man she had supported for over 2 decades, the pastor she had stood by through thick and thin, had ignored every single warning, and now the cost might be irreversible. But there was more. A discovery made in the aftermath of the collapse would leave everyone stunned. Bishop Jones had left behind a secret letter found in his study by his assistant after the incident. The letter, handwritten and marked for Laura Polona only, was delivered to her in the hospital. Its contents remain a mystery to the public, but a source close to the family hinted that it might contain final instructions, a possible plan for him to step down from active ministry, and perhaps an apology to Laurapol for not heeding her warning sooner. As Laurapol sat by his bedside, holding his hand and whispering soft prayers into his ear, the situation took yet another turn. A doctor entered with a proposal so shocking that it left the entire family frozen in place. What he said next could reshape Bishop Jones's entire future, both in ministry and in life. It was just past midnight at Cedars-Sinai when the tension in the ICU waiting room was palpable. Church members rotated in and out, and security had to step in to manage the influx of emotional visitors. Meanwhile, inside room 514, Bishop Noel Jones remained sedated, hooked up to monitors, his heart rate being watched closely minute by minute. Then at approximately 1:12 a.m., the lead cardiologist entered the room. Loretta family members and 2 key church board members were gathered, and according to someone present, the doctor didn't mince words. If he continues at the pace he's going, he won't survive the next episode. His body is deteriorating. His heart cannot take another collapse. The room fell silent. Loretta, already shaken to her core, nodded in understanding. She didn't need convincing, but not everyone in the room was so sure. One high-ranking board member reportedly pushed back, asking, "Are we talking about a temporary sabbatical or full retirement?" Bishop Noel Jones isn't just a man, he's the brand, and that's when the cracks within the ministry began to show in full force. Behind the scenes, tension had been simmering within the leadership of the City of Refuge Church for months. Some factions, quietly and cautiously, had been pushing for Bishop Jones to pass the torch. The recent controversies surrounding mismanaged events, delayed payments to staff, and dwindling attendance at midweek services had raised alarms. But now, with the bishop incapacitated and his medical team suggesting he permanently step away from preaching, those quiet tensions erupted into open conflict. One insider shared with us, some of them started making moves that night. Calls were made, emails sent. Certain people saw this as their window to finally take over. While Loretta was by her husband's side, praying and holding on to hope, others were already planning what came next without him. And here's where it gets even more intense. According to the church's bylaws, if a senior pastor is medically unable to perform his duties for more than 30 days, a transition committee must be appointed to temporarily replace him. What was meant to be a safeguard against instability became a tool for power grabs. By the following morning, rumors were already flying through private church group chats. Is Bishop stepping down? Did he really have a heart attack? Is Pastor Ray taking over? Where is Loretta now? But while the church's leadership was already in turmoil, Loretta took an unexpected step. Despite her emotional exhaustion, she called a closed-door meeting with the hospital chaplain and her legal counsel, though the details remain private. Sources close to the situation reveal that Loretta is considering legally securing Bishop Jones's legacy and ensuring that his wishes are respected, especially if there are any sudden leadership takeovers trying to override his intentions. Some even speculate that she might release parts of the handwritten letter he left behind, not just as a personal message, but as a directive to the entire church about his final decisions. But just when it seemed like everything was in limbo, Bishop Jones himself made a move that shocked everyone. Nearly 36 hours after his collapse, he finally opened his eyes. The room was dimly lit, the hum of medical machines creating an eerie quiet. Loretta, who had barely left his side, was still clutching his hand, her swollen eyes locked on him. Then his fingers twitched. Loretta gasped. One of the nurses leaned in, gently tapping his arm, asking, "Bishop, can you hear me?" His eyes flickered, and with great effort, he whispered a faint yes. But what followed next wasn't just a moment of relief. It was a moment that would change everything. According to Loretta and a close family member present, Bishop Noel Jones whispered something that left everyone in the room speechless. Bishop Noel Jones turned his head slightly, his eyes locking with Loretta's as he whispered words that broke the fragile silence of the room. "I'm sorry I didn't listen." That one sentence shattered everything for Loretta. Her heart cracked as she leaned over, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "You're still here. That's all that matters." The weight of the moment was heavy. He was still with her despite everything. The bishop, barely able to speak, managed to say a bit more as doctors adjusted his oxygen. When the cardiologist asked about his plans moving forward, Noel Jones, in a soft, raspy tone, replied, The people need a shepherd, but maybe it's time to teach them how to walk without me. Those words lingered in the air, their meaning sinking in. Was this the beginning of the end of his pastoral journey? For the first time, Bishop Jones was acknowledging his mortality, and perhaps more profoundly, expressing a willingness to step aside and let go. Loretta, who had stood by his side for over 2 decades, through the criticisms, the delays in their marriage, the public scrutiny, and now this near-death experience, told a nurse afterward, "I knew he loved the church, but I didn't know he loved it more than his life." It was a moment of clarity, of painful truth. But just when it seemed like the emotional toll couldn't get any heavier, something shocking happened. Before the doctors could discuss his next steps in recovery, Bishop Jones made a request. "Bring me a notepad," he said, his voice weak but determined. Barely able to hold a pen, he began writing, drafting what many insiders believe might be a farewell letter or perhaps a transitional document. Some say it's a direct message to the congregation, while others believe it outlines a blueprint for succession, what comes next for the church and its leadership. Whatever the contents, that notepad was locked away, reportedly under Loretta's supervision, to safeguard whatever plans he had set in motion. Meanwhile, news of his awakening spread like wildfire. The gospel world, along with his fans and supporters, erupted on social media. Figures like Kirk Franklin, Donnie McClurkin, and even his sister Grace Jones posted tributes and messages of shock and prayer. On Twitter, the hashtag #WhyIPrayForBishop Jones began trending within hours. But as the world prayed, the church leadership was left scrambling. Some board members were relieved by his survival, but others were already questioning when he would return. "Can he come back next month?" One assistant pastor allegedly asked. "Do we announce a retirement or just a recovery plan?" Another inquired. The pressure to act, to make a decision, was mounting, but Loretta wasn't having it. She stood firm in a private meeting, asserting, "His health comes first, not the platform. He's not returning to that pulpit until he's fully ready, and even then, only if he wants to." Loretta had made it clear her husband's well-being would not be sacrificed for the sake of church expectations or the pulpit. For the first time in years, it seemed like Loretta Jones was finally taking control of the narrative, not just as his wife, but as his protector. She had drawn a clear line, standing firm on her husband's health and legacy. Yet just as things began to settle down, a bombshell dropped that shook the foundation of the church and threatened to unravel years of unity and trust within the city of refuge. It started with a leak. Late Thursday night, a voice memo surfaced in a private church staff group chat. By the time morning came, it had spread like wildfire across social media. The recording, just over 3 minutes long, was allegedly made during a private leadership meeting 2 weeks before Bishop Jones's collapse. In the audio, a voice that sounds strikingly similar to Bishop Noel Jones's can be heard saying, "I've been dizzy lately. There's something going on in my chest, but I won't stop now. I've made peace with God. If I fall, I fall preaching." The room falls silent. Then another voice, presumably a staff member, responds, "Bishop, that's dangerous. Maybe we should postpone the next 3 Sundays. But Bishop Jones cuts in firmly, "No, let the word go forth. I don't need sympathy, I need strength." The authenticity of the recording hasn't been officially confirmed by Bishop Jones's representatives, but several church leaders have acknowledged hearing that very conversation weeks earlier and choosing to remain silent, out of respect for the bishop's authority and his wishes. But now that silence is being called into question. The leaked voice note has ignited a firestorm, dividing the congregation and sparking heated debates both online and behind the pulpit. On one side, loyalists defend Bishop Jones's fierce commitment to his calling, hailing him as a spiritual warrior who chose purpose over personal preservation. On the other side, many are deeply concerned, calling his actions reckless, irresponsible, and even manipulative. One former staff member took to Facebook Live saying, "You don't get to gamble with your life when you lead thousands. That pulpit is sacred, but so is accountability." The controversy didn't stop there. Some church members are demanding a full investigation into the leadership decisions made in the days leading up to his collapse, questioning who knew about the bishop's deteriorating health and why no one intervened. The call for accountability is growing louder by the day. Through all of this, Loretta has remained silent. Her only public statement was a brief Instagram post, a black screen with the words, "Thank you for the prayers, he's still fighting." Her silence speaks volumes, and the world is left wondering just how much of this saga is still yet to unfold. Inside sources say Loretta has been privately furious about the leak and the way certain church leaders are now using her husband's name for their own personal gain. The betrayal, as some close to her describe it, has only deepened the emotional strain she's been under. While the world has watched with bated breath as her husband fights for his life, Loretta has been quietly considering her next steps. Reports suggest she is contemplating stepping into a formal leadership role, or at the very least addressing the congregation publicly once Bishop Jones is stable enough. It's clear that the power dynamics within the church are shifting, and Loretta is no longer willing to remain in the background. As for Bishop Noel, the road ahead won't be easy. Doctors have made it clear that he faces a lengthy and challenging period of cardiac rehabilitation, medication adjustments, and likely permanent lifestyle changes. A physician close to the case mentioned, even if he recovers physically, emotionally, and mentally, this event will leave a scar. The psychological toll of this collapse, combined with the health battle he now faces, is something that cannot be easily overcome. There's still no official word on whether Bishop Jones will return to the pulpit, retire entirely, or transition into a mentorship or emeritus role. The future of his ministry is uncertain, and speculation is rampant. But what is crystal clear is this: his collapse has triggered a reckoning. A reckoning not just with his health, but with the very structure, transparency, and future of the ministry he built. The questions that were once whispered behind closed doors are now being asked in public. And no matter what happens next, it's evident that the foundation of the City of Refuge will never be the same again.